Hello everyone, I'm Anissa, founder of Pop It Up Magazine, and today I have a special guest, two special guests, Miss Freda Payne and Mitchell Coleman Jr. And today is going to be a little bit different, not quite an interview, but more like a conversation, because I want you guys to really know the story of Miss Freda Payne, and the question is going to be more asked by Mitchell Coleman Jr. because he wants to know a lot about her as much as you do, guys. And she's here to answer all these questions. And as you may know, they're going to release a single for the upcoming album, Mitchell Coleman Jr., which is called Dedication. Dedication because it is for a dedication to his mother, which unfortunately he lost 2 years ago. So this album is very dear to his heart, and he's very, very grateful to have Miss Freda Payne singing on one of his records for the album. And he's going to talk to you about it. They're both going to talk to you both about that song. It's a wonderful song. It's a cover. So we're going to join the conversation, all of us, and also Michael B. Sutton, the producer of the album, is going to be joining too. So stay tuned and let's go.
So, growing up, who were your influences?
Well, mine was influenced by several people.
Mm-hmm.
I liked Ella Fitzgerald.
Mm-hmm.
I liked Lena Horne.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at people who were, I guess, in the media as well.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, Karen McRae, Sarah Vaughan. When you say, who did I admire the most, those are some of the singers I admired the most.
Yeah, now Ella Fitzgerald.
Gloria Lynn. Gloria Lynn. A lot of people don't remember her, but she was, back when I was in my early teens, she was big then, and I liked her a lot. Gloria Lynn.
Gloria Lynn.
Yeah.
Okay. I know with Ella Fitzgerald, I guess influenced you so much. You actually did a tribute to her, right? You still?
I've done more than that. I do a tribute to Ella, like a concert, like a one woman type thing. But I also have been cast to portray Ella on the theatrical stage, where I'm going to play. I do a play. It's called Ella Fitzgerald, First Lady of Song. And the first time I did it was at Crossroads in New Brunswick, New Jersey. And that was in 2004.
Okay.
And I was cast as Ella. And of course, there was her manager, Norman Grants, and her half-sister, Frances, and her cousin, who was the lady who was her traveling companion, and who was her dresser and all that. And her name was her name was Georgina. And I did that play, and then I did it again in 2014 in Alexandria, Virginia, at Metro Stage. And then the last time I did it was in 2018 in Wilmington, Delaware, at the Delaware Theater.
Wow.
And actually, I've gotten quite excellent reviews from having done it each time. Yeah.
As far as your beginnings, you were, I guess you were taught with Ruth Ann Johnson. Your vocal instructor?
Yeah. Well, she's the one that really kind of like brought me out. She's the one that discovered that I had a voice that I could sing, and when I could sing, you know, but I never.
But what made you go to her? How did that come about?
Well, Mrs. Johnson, Ruth Ann Johnson, she was my piano teacher, and I'd been taking piano from her for about 6 years, maybe 6 or 7 years. And just as also my sister Sherry, we both had piano lessons. Gotcha. And she was getting ready to preparing for the next piano recital. And she wanted to put together an ensemble of a group of 6 voices, 6 people. And she wanted to test my voice to see if I was good enough to be in the ensemble.
Gotcha.
And when she heard me sing, she said, "Oh, Freda, you have a lovely voice." She says, she gave me a solo to do.
Right.
And I did a solo, and the song was called "Stars Are the Windows of Heaven." And then I also sang in the group as well. So that's how it all started. And then after that, I started entering talent contests in and around Detroit.
Yeah,
And
Ed McKenzie.
yeah, Ed McKenzie's Dance Hour, that was on TV.
I heard you won that twice, right?
I won it twice, I sure did. And that kind of like started the ball rolling.
Right, and then from there, I think from what from your book and stuff that you had like, I think Jimmy Wilkins, the orchestra. Is it Jimmy Wilkins?
Yeah, Jimmy Wilkins.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy Wilkins was he had a big band.
Mm-hmm.
He was like Detroit's version of Count Basie, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And he would play for different functions, you know, social functions at the Latin Quarter and Masonic Temple downtown, and he would often hire me as to be his band singer, and I would do a couple of songs, maybe 2 or 3 songs.
Gotcha. Now you also got into dance.
Yeah, I studied ballet for a couple of years, from the time I was 12 until I was 12, 13. And then I had modern dancing, and I also took some Afro-Cuban classes as well.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and then after that, once I went to New York and I was in my later teens and early 20s, I was always taking dance classes, you know, modern jazz and maybe some ballet as well.
Kept you in shape too, right?
It kept me in shape, yeah. Yeah.
Now, also you appeared on Apollo Amateur Hour, right?
I did once.
Right, and they found out that you wasn't no amateur, right?
Yeah, they thought I was a professional, but
exactly.
I wasn't. Yeah. Of course, I was still an amateur then.
Now, you had I think you went to a studio, I think it was with Berry Gordy. At the time, it was like United, it wasn't Motown at the time, United.
There was no Motown.
United Studios. United
was
Studios
called
or something?
United Sound.
United Sounds,
United Sound was during like the 50s and the 60s, and I think even into the 70s. United Sound was the main recording studio, the go-to place that people went there to record. You know, to record their music, their demos. Matter of fact, I did a couple of commercials there at United Sound.
Okay.
When I was 16, you know, professional commercials that were played on the radio, and Barry recorded 4 songs with me at United Sound, but this was before he even founded Motown.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was 14 at the time.
Now, after you got into all that, you end up going into Broadway somewhat, right? Like
Well, that happened a few years later down the road. By that time I was 25, and I got to, I got the job as Leslie Uggams' understudy in Hallelujah Baby.
Hallelujah Baby, yeah.
This was in 1967, and I was able to go on, and matter of fact, I was able to go on 5 times. And the first time I went on, I got a standing ovation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I know that was based off a book. What was that? Was it Badlands or something like that?
I don't know. All I remember is Hallelujah Baby. and what it was a musical play based on the racial. It started out in the 20s, you know, and then it migrated and then it moved up to the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, and then it ended in the 60s because we were already in the 60s.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right.
Yeah, and it showed how the circumstances changed, the dialogue changed, but the people remained the same.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, like I start the opening scene, the first act. I'm like you're like a maid working in Massa's house, you know, and like your beloved, the guy who was like my co-star, who that would have been Robert Hooks, and at one point I did it with Billy D. Williams, and then Lincoln Kilpatrick, you know, because I did it 5 times, and I was able to do it with all these different actors.
Wow.
And it started out in the beginning where they're Pullman porters, you know, and because that back then to be a black man being a Pullman porter was a very prestigious job to have, a good job to have. And then after that it moves on up, and then finally it winds up coming to the civil rights era in the 60s, you know, and things are different and circumstances are different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, there's a Lost in the Stars. What is that?
Lost in the Stars was a play and a musical that was written by Kirk Vile.
Mm-hmm.
And matter of fact, there's a movie on it. It's been made into a movie, and with Brock Peters, I think Melba Moore, Clifton Davis, and Lost in the Stars.
Now, you were doing that play, and one time, and that's when they heard the news of Martin Luther King's assassination.
Yes,
right?
I was doing it it was an Equity Theater that was located in New York in Manhattan on 103rd Street, right? I think right off West End, and I was in the play. It was just a short run, like I think we did like about a week or something, or 2 weeks, and I remember being in my dressing room, and there were a few other ladies. We were sharing a dressing room, and somebody had the radio on because they had heard the news. The news came over the radio station that Martin Luther King had been shot, but yet they hadn't announced that he was dead. And when they announced it, I screamed, and somebody said, "Be quiet! There's a show going on upstairs."
The show's going on, right?
You know, and I couldn't believe it. It was like, it was devastating.
Devastating.
And then on the way home, when I left that night, when the show was over, and I was actually living, I could walk home. I could walk to my apartment, and because I was living on 97th Street, and I remember people were fighting in the streets. And then when I was living, my apartment was on the 19th floor. When I got to my apartment, I could see fires. There were fires up in Harlem. I could see Harlem, and I could see the smoke and fires up in Harlem, burning. Yeah, and you know they were they were doing that in D.C. too.
Yeah,
they were rioting in D.C. and burning
everywhere. Mm-hmm.
Everywhere.
Now you were with a record company with ABC at one time.
That was my first record label.
The first record label.
My first record label was ABC Paramount, and that when I signed with them in 1962.
Gotcha. Now were they bought out? I'm not sure how the story goes by Invicta.
No. ABC Paramount was a major label. Invictus was a small label that was formed by Holland, Dozier and Holland.
All right, we get into that one.
Yeah, right. And their first distributor was Capitol Records.
So when did you
Invictus.
When did you transition from the jazz Broadway thing to R&B?
When I signed with Invictus.
Okay, yeah. That's it.
And that was, I signed with them actually in 1968, and then we recorded all during 1969. And the first single came out, it was called The Unhooked Generation, and that was released in the fall of 1969. That didn't quite chart. So then in 1970, they released Band of Gold, and that was released in February of 1970. And that became a big record for me. That became my first big hit and a gold record.
What is that? Something generation?
The Unhooked Generation.
The Unhooked Generation.
Yeah,
right.
that was the first. That was on the first album I did. The album was called Band of Gold, and Unhooked Generation was really the first single they released.
And I have the book.
Oh, yeah.
Band of Gold.
It's Band of Gold, yeah.
I'm sure you have a lot to say about it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Band of Gold.
That's my memoir. And some of the things that we've been currently talking about, it's all in there. And some.
That's my copy, or I'm going to get one?
No, that's their copy.
Yes, and she signed it for us.
Yeah.
You can get it on Amazon and all the stores and her website, fredapayne.com.
Let me see that.
Yep.
And guys, it's still Freda Payne. Yeah.
The sexy Freda
Absolutely.
Payne.
Now there's another song of The Easy Way to Fall.
It's called The Easiest Way to Fall.
Yeah.
To lean on someone you love. Easiest way to, is that one of the songs I recorded on Invictus?
Invicta, yeah.
You
Those
must
two.
like that song.
Yeah, I love all yours.
Oh, that was the B-side of Band of Gold.
Exactly.
That was written by Sharon Pierce, who was married to Brian Holland.
Okay.
So her name was Sharon Pierce Harlan. And I went to school with her, as well as I went to school with Brian high school.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people don't know there's an interesting story about Band of Gold, isn't it? That you didn't really like that song at first. You didn't want to do it, right?
It wasn't that
You
I
can understand
didn't
it,
like it. I questioned the lyrics, and as to my age, I was in my 20s then. I was in my late 20s, and I said, this song is very adolescent. This is for a young girl, like, maybe who's a virgin and like maybe still in her teens, and she's like, timid and all like that. And I said, and Ronald Dunbar was working with me. He was helping me learn the song. He said, "Don't worry about it. Just sing it.
The song. Right,
Just sing the song."
But it's interesting also the story of the song itself. It was more like a guy that got married to a woman, but he was questionable about his sexuality, wasn't it? It was kind of that kind of situation.
Well, I don't know. Everybody kind of like goes there.
Yeah.
But the thing is that when I ask and I question Ron Dunbar, and also I guess he was voicing the opinion of the writers, who were the real writers were Lamont Dozier and Eddie Holland and Brian Holland, and they said it's because the bride was frigid. So it can go both ways, you see.
Yeah. It's kind of. Well, I'm just talking with it now, but
either or.
Yeah, either or. Yeah, right.
Right.
But I had figured it was more like the way they explained it. It was more like they got married, but he was questionable about his sexuality,
and that could be one of the scenarios.
And she's left there with this band of gold.
That could be one of the scenarios, and also her being frigid is another one.
Right.
Exactly. When you think about it, that makes more sense, because if she's frigid and she's like keeping her legs closed, and like, don't come near. She got on her pajamas and everything, and her cap and her little bonnet or cap. She's not getting ready. She's not acting right. So he would get discouraged and just say, "Well, I'm going. Bye." Because remember, she has the line. I have the line. But come and try me one more time. I said, that night on honeymoon, we stayed in separate rooms. Now that you're gone, all that's left is a band of gold. If you were still here with me, all that's left of the dreams I hold is a band of gold. If you were still here with me.
Now you got a little political, I believe, when you did the Bring the Boys Home.
Yeah.
Now, like all the other ones, like Jane Fonda and all those people that were into that, stopping the against the war in Vietnam. Did you find any backlash, government backlash?
Oh yeah, we got it. And here the funny thing is, I didn't expect it. I wasn't even thinking about, I'm being protesting the war.
No, you just sing a good thing. Bring the boys home.
I'm just singing a good song that's going to bring some comfort and good vibes, to the country as well as the soldiers over there. And what happened was 2 weeks after it was released and getting the airplay, the record company got a telegram from D.C. stating that our song "Bring the Boys Home" will not be played in South Vietnam due to the fact that it was giving aid and comfort to the enemy.
To the enemy.
Yeah, aid and comfort to the enemy. And I'm like, damn. Those Republicans, they go there. They always go, it seemed like to me, they always go to the negative.
And you don't even know what's going on. It's just...
Yeah, well, they go to the negative. And I'm not trying to put any party down, because by the way, I'm a Democrat, but still,
Now, let's go back to the music part of it. You had an album called Contact.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, which one that you were up for the Grammy for?
I was up for Contact.
Now, you had this thing locked down, right? It was yours.
Yeah.
But then Aretha.
Yeah.
Aretha came in there with that. What was the song that got that? Bridge Over Troubled Waters. Yeah,
Bridge Over Troubled Waters. Yeah.
That's a hard one.
But back then, it was hard to beat Aretha.
It's hard to beat Aretha.
But if Aretha was in the mix,
it's pretty much
you're like, your chances are like very slim.
Yeah, Aretha. Yeah. Now the other, Pearl Bailey,
Mm-hmm.
was she the one that did she help influence you in any way business wise?
Well, I kind of, when I see, this was the first professional job that I had, like at the age of 17,
Mhm.
going on the road, the first one. And everything was new to me. So, I mean, being in the theater, we worked all theaters, and it was the Pearl Bailey Review. So,
Mhm.
you had to be in the theater by half hour, no matter what. You couldn't be strolling in like a quarter of, because
Right,
you still had to
right.
get ready and put your dresses on and all like
Mhm,
that,
mhm.
do your makeup. So that, and also she had some rules. Now I've been in the business now over 60 years, and I have never worked with anybody who had some of the rules that she insisted upon. One being, you couldn't, if you had a favorite cologne, or a perfume, whichever you wore. That's if you. Some people are allergic to cologne,
Mhm.
but a lot of people aren't. Men wear cologne, women like perfume and toilet
Mhm,
water
mhm.
or parfum. And she said, you cannot wear your scent. You have to wear what I wear, and that's Réplique.
Okay.
Réplique by Jean Revien. And I went out and bought myself a little. I didn't get the perfume because that would have been way too expensive. So I got the toilet water cologne, and I got a little bottle of Réplique. And also, listen to this. Now I was one of the background singers. Now there was there was a white girl as one of the background singers,
Mhm.
and then a couple of black girls like me, and then there were guys. There was a white guy and a black guy, and but this was pertaining to the women. She said you cannot wear the shade that you want to wear for your skin. You have to wear the shade that I wear.
Hmm.
Even the white girl,
Wow.
and she looked ridiculous. It was like, I said, but why? Why does she want that? She said, because she wants everybody to blend complexion wise.
So the whites had to do like a blackface then.
No, I remember the white girl, she just looked red. She just looked red like an Indian or something.
Now, when did you met Duke Ellington?
Yeah.
Right, and
Yeah.
and you had to do like a little
Well,
audition.
how
for
I
him.
met him, it all started with a friend of ours who was our neighbor. His name was Alan Early Jr.
Mm.
And he was good friends with my parents. He was an attorney Alan Early Jr. Matter of fact, he was one of the best criminal attorneys in Detroit. And he was at a cocktail party where he met Mercer Ellington. And he started bragging about me and telling Mercer about me. And Mercer said, well, I would like to hear her sing. And I think Alan kind of promoted that. So they invited Mercer to come to our house, to my house.
Mm-hmm.
And so I sang for Mercer in the living room. And Mercer was impressed. He was impressed with it. And he said, you know what? You're good. You can sing good. I want my dad to hear you. And so Duke and the band, they were staying at a hotel in Detroit called the Gotham Hotel, which was black owned.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I'm going to arrange for you to come down to the hotel to sing for my dad. And of course that happened. And I went, and my mother drove me down there, and I auditioned for Duke Ellington. And he actually played for me.
Wow.
It was just the two of us in the room because he had a suite, and they had a piano in the suite. And he played for me, and I sang. And when I finished, he said, you remind me of Lena Horne.
Wow.
He says, I want to hear you sing with the band. And so he said, the only problem is that we're leaving Detroit in the morning to drive to Pittsburgh, and we're performing at the Holiday House there. Mm-hmm. And he said, if you can get somebody, your mother or somebody, to drive you to Pittsburgh, I'd be more than happy to bring you up as a guest spot. And that happened.
Okay.
Yeah, that happened.
Now, where does Matt Ferguson fits in that scene?
Well, actually, Mac Ferguson went with us. It was my mother Mac, and me, you know, of course, right? And we drove from Detroit to Pittsburgh, and we stayed at the Holiday House. And that evening, Duke Ellington in the showroom, he brought me up to sing.
Wow, that had to be some serious grooming for you.
Oh yeah, and as a matter of fact, the next afternoon I got to meet Billy Strayhorn. Billy Strayhorn was very famous. I mean, I didn't realize how famous he was, but I remember his name because I'd heard of him before, you know, and I got to meet Billy Strayhorn.
Wow. Now,
Sorry.
Sid Bernstein.
Yeah.
When did that come in? That's after all this is going on, right?
Yeah, because when I came to New York, well, actually, it was like maybe a couple of years later. I went to New York to live, and after a few months, I was able to acquire an agent, and that was Sid Bernstein. And Sid Bernstein worked out at GAC. Yeah, it was a big agency. There was MCA, William Morris, you know, GAC, and the other agencies. And he became my first agent. He's the agent that he was the first agent to bring the Beatles to this country.
Wow.
Yeah, and that happened in '65.
European invasion. That was him, huh?
Yeah, that was Sid Bernstein. He's accredited to be to that, yeah.
Sleight of Time. Sounds familiar?
Slightly Out of Tune.
Slightly Out of Tune.
Slightly Out of Tune was
just like my saying was, right?
Yeah. It was Slightly Out of Tune was the first single that I recorded on ABC Paramount. Now, Slightly Out of Tune was the lyrics were put to a song called Desafinado, and Desafinado had been an instrumental hit, and by a saxophonist, and I'm trying to remember his name now. But anyway, Desafinado, da 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 da. People have compared it to a symphony, a symphony constructed by the lightning of the moon. But our song of love is slightly out of tune. Once your kisses raised me to a fever pitch. Now the orchestration doesn't seem so rich. Da 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 da. I forget the words. Da da da. There'll be no desafinado when your heart belongs to me completely. Now we won't be slightly out of tune. You'll sing along with me.
There it is. Now the other side of that was a Grin and Bear It.
Oh, don't grin and bear it. Don't grin and bear it. Think like it doesn't hurt a bit.
Like a door.
That sounds kind of, when I think about it, that sounds kind of funny.
Yeah. And now, entering Quincy Jones.
Yes.
How did that come about?
Well, I was hanging out. I was having a little snack, I think a late supper, at a little night spot. It was actually a restaurant, and it was black owned by a guy named Danny Sims.
Okay.
And he owned this restaurant. It was called Sapphires. And so a lot of people would come there, like especially people performing after their show, they would come there. And regular people during the regular dinner hours would come there to eat. And I went there with my friend, my girlfriend, my roommate. We went there one night, and we're eating, and it was kind of late. It was a late supper, and Danny came over. He knew who I was because I'd been in there before, and he said, "Freda, you're a singer, right?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You know, I think you ought to meet this guy, Quincy Jones. I think you guys should meet." And he's sitting right over there. And so I said, okay. So then he introduced me to Quincy. And then Quincy invited me to sit with them. He was with Jerome Robinson. And, or was it Richards? Jerome Richards. He was a saxophone player in Quincy's band. And you know, one thing led to another, and we started flirting with one another. And then that's how our friendship started.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did you sing for him at that time? It was called If I Were a Bell or something like that?
Not there, no.
Not there.
This didn't happen until a few days later, because he was actually performing at a club on the east side. See, this was on the west side. Between this restaurant, Sapphires, was located on West 48th Street between Broadway and 8th Avenue.
Gotcha.
And Quincy was performing on the east side at a club called Basin Street East.
Check that.
And people performed there like Tony Bennett, Ella Fitzgerald, up top acts.
Mm-hmm.
And he was there with his band.
Wow.
And so he invited me to come to see his show, and then afterwards I think we went to some little bars,
Mm-hmm.
And that's when he asked me there was a jazz trio there, and he asked me to get up and sing.
And that's the song you sang.
Yeah, If I Were a Bell.
Oh, wow. Your holidays are our work times, you know what I mean? Christmas and all that
well,
stuff.
I'll put it this way. You say vacation. I mean, I have been on like some cruises
Mm-hmm.
where I wasn't working, and then I've been on cruises where I was working.
Mm-hmm.
But I've had some great, I don't get them that much nowadays, but
Mm-hmm.
back in let's say the 60s and the 70s and the 80s,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes 90s, I'd get bookings that were like vacations. Like I used to get bookings in Puerto Rico. I'd be at the
Wow.
Caribe Hilton or the El San Juan or the Flamboyant hotel, and I'd be performing. So during the day, I'm in Puerto Rico. I'm having a good time. Or I remember I used to get booked in Bermuda,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd be at the Southampton Princess, and I'd have my suite, and I'd have to just do a one show, a dinner show in the evening. But during the day, I can do whatever. I can go to the beach, hang out,
Wow.
and it's like I'm doing what these people have paid hundreds of dollars to do, So it's like I'm on a paid vacation.
Exactly. After you were working with Quincy, that's when the Jet magazine started. And I know all the fellas want to know about the Jet magazine.
Well, the first cover I ever did, and the little people, I don't think many people remember. I was on the cover.
And it was only a face shot.
It was just a face shot, and I was listed as Quincy's protege.
Right, exactly.
And I was like in my early 20s. No, wait a minute, I was still in my teens. I was still in my teens.
But then right after that is when the centerfold started, right?
The centerfold started, and I'd have unbathing suits and stuff like that, and then after I got had Band of Gold, then after I had Band of Gold, then I was on there more, and then I was like this sexy image and all that started.
Yes, Lord. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Got my copy and I'm a witness. Absolutely. So it's interesting. There was a centerfold that you did that was real popular at one time. But like I say, it seemed like certain times you were getting your glory for something. Something tragic would happen. Like at that time, Kennedy was assassinated.
Kennedy was assassinated in November of 1963.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was working in Las Vegas with Lionel Hampton.
Wow.
I was with Hamp, and also on the show was the Nicholas brothers, Fayard and Harold Nicholas. And
Dancers, okay.
Yeah, they were the greatest tap dance team of all time. Fayard and Harold Nicholas, the Nicholas brothers. They were in movies.
Oh yeah, I know exactly.
They were in movies back in the 30s and the 40s. Yeah. So anyway, it was devastating. It was. People were crying, and but the show we still went on, and everything. But it was hard. It was heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm. And as far as we were talking earlier, the situation when you were in Vegas the first time, and you guys can find hotels, things like that,
Yeah.
So this is good for Black History Month to understand this type of situation.
Oh yeah, because this was, I'm talking 1961. This was prior to the what do you call not the civil right, the before they signed the civil rights bill,
Mm-hmm.
and that was Lyndon B. Johnson.
Right,
He signed the civil
Mhm.
rights bill, and that I think that was 1963, 64, somewhere around there. And I remember we drove I was with my mother and Mac Ferguson, and we drove from Detroit to Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
And when we arrived, it was like about 9 o'clock in the evening. And so when we drove down the strip, the first thing I saw was all this neon, all these lights. And I was like, oh, wow. It was like, oh, wow. It was wonderful. It was a good feeling, to finally arrive there and then see all these lights, and these beautiful lights and all these hotels lit up. So finally we started to stop at motels to get a room, because we had to get a couple of rooms. And they always said vacancy. Mac would go in and come back out. They said no vacancy, but the sign says vacancy. It's like they have vacancies, but they're telling me no. So we go to another one. It says vacancy outside, and he come back out. They're telling me no vacancy. So finally, I'm thinking to myself, what's wrong with Mac? It sounds like something's wrong with that. Maybe just they don't want us to stay here or something. So we're tired now. So finally, we saw this black man walking down the street on the Las Vegas Boulevard, and we stopped him. And my mother, we got out and we said, "What's going on here? We've been trying to find a place to stay. We just drove here from Detroit, and they keep telling us no vacancy when the sign always says vacancies." He says, "Well, man, don't you know that they don't allow us to stay on the strip?" And my mother said, "Yeah, but I'm here with my daughter who's a singer, and she's coming here. We're coming here to bring her to sing with Duke Ellington, and he's appearing at the Riviera Hotel in the lounge. And isn't Duke Ellington staying at the Riviera?" And the man said, "Oh no, man, he's not staying there. He can't stay there."
Wow.
He said he has to stay over on the west side, the Dust Bowl, at the West Motel. They're probably over there at the West Motel, and if you call, you get a payphone and call. It's owned by Dr. Bell.
Wow.
He's a dentist, a black dentist. And so we got on the payphone and called, and sure enough, the whole band and Duke Ellington, they were staying at the West Motel. And so we were able to go there, and we were able to book a couple of rooms there.
Wow.
And that's my story.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow, wow. So you could perform, but you couldn't stay.
You can perform, but you can't live in the hotel.
Wow.
Now, this changed shortly after. This is 61 by 60, well, I think it was 63, because I was able to stay on the strip after that, around 63. And that was with Larry Steele, Smart Affair, his review, Larry Steele's review, Smart Affairs, because we worked at the Thunderbird, and we had bungalows on the strip.
Mm.
And then Dinah Washington was performing at one point around 64, around there, 64. She was performing in the lounge at the Thunderbird Hotel. I remember because I went to see her show. And she was actually living in the hotel at that time. So, everything was cool. But
Wow. Wow.
And who really, really helped to break that was Frank Sinatra.
I heard that. Yeah, Frank Sinatra.
With Sammy Davis Jr., because he had Sammy on the show with him. And they didn't want Sammy to even come into the front entrance of the Sands. They wanted him to come in through the kitchen and through the back. And he said, "No way." He says, "Sammy can't come through the entrance in the front and stay at the hotel." He says, "I'm out.
Wow.
I'm done."
They're not gonna lose us.
No,
Frank.
they didn't lose Frank. No, he was the real godfather.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, influenced a lot of things.
Yeah.
Even presidents. So, yeah, absolutely. Well, it's been an honor to talk to you. and you're such an amazing person to me. You know, your professionalism, your longevity, and you're still in the game. You know, and you've been deeply blessed. You know, and I'm like I said, I'm honored that you're even considering being on my album right now.
Oh, thank you. Oh, by the way, I have to make a correction. You know how when you get a little older, you have this these mind blocks. Remember, I was talking about my first single on ABC Paramount, and I said the first single was called "Slightly Out of Tune," but it was a big hit by a musician named Stan Getz.
And guess.
And he had the Desafinado. Desafinado, that was his hit.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
He was a saxophone player.
Well, I'll tell you, guys, if you really want to know more about Freda Payne, please get this book. This book right here. And for all you guys that was like me with the Jet magazines, she's still
You
just
want
as
to know?
beautiful.
You want to know about Mitchell Coleman Jr.?
Yeah, look at him. Look at
this handsome man.
Look at that. You are fine, honey. Look at that. And that gray hair compliments you.
He's an amazing
no
bass
guy coming from
player.
here. Thank you.
So don't miss out, really. Mitchell Coleman Jr. and Freda Payne, they're going to release a beautiful songs. It's going to be out really soon from the album Dedication. So stay tuned for, I think, spring, late spring, we'd say?
Yes.
Yes, by late spring. So don't forget to subscribe to mitchellcolemanjr.com newsletter, so you'll be the first to know when it will be released. And of course, fredapayne.com.
C'est moi.
I am Freda Payne.
Oh, and don't miss out on, so you have a date, February the 5th?
Oh, yeah. February the 5th, I'm going to be in Seattle, Washington, at a club called the Triple Door. And it's a restaurant theater. And I'm going to be there on the 5th of February. So get your tickets. Go online and come and see me.
And you can book it on fredapayne.com.
And you can go on fredapayne.com.
Yes.
It's listed there. Yeah.
It's on the event page.
It's called the Triple Door, Seattle, Washington.
February the 5th. And the last word I want to ask you, you guys, for Pop It Up magazine. I know you've been talking about some history about the African American in the 60s.
Yeah, we spoke about that.
Yes, just for our readers, a last word about the Black History Month. On a positive note, I want to add a positive note for the celebration of Black History Month. So what would you say to our listeners, readers?
Okay, I'd like to say that we're still in the fight for equality and for voters' rights. They're trying to make it harder for people in the minority class, meaning people of color, or like African American people, or Latino people, immigrants. They're trying to make it harder for those people to vote. And as long as you're a bona fide American citizen, you have American citizenship, you should be able to vote. You have the right to vote. And it's one of those things. I call it the games they play. I won't put a name on it, but all the games people play every night and every day, trying to stay on top and trying to be the ruling class. And it's not about a ruling class. It's about being fair across the board. Just be fair across the board. You know, not to favor one team, but to be fair and be justified with both, with Democrats, with Republicans. Just be fair.
Exactly. I agree with Freda. I agree with Freda. I would just say it's a lot of crazy things going on right now, but find peace within, you know.
Yes.
If you can carry that within, you know, things seem to work themselves out. So I would just say, don't get caught up in the hoopla. Take care of yourselves. Get vaccinated. It's very important. And those that don't, you don't. I mean, it's your choice. But protect yourself, you know. And this is, like I said, it's a strange time. But God is still in control. So there we go. That's it.
And on a positive note, God is in control.
Absolutely.
We love you guys. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. popitupmagazine.com and on YouTube channel, Pop It Up Magazine.
Yeah.
And get your copy, of course. Freda Payne, Band of God, a memoir. Exciting stories out there. Really, you must read it. And of course, if you want to know more about Mitchell Coleman Jr., Pop It Up Magazine, December edition.
He's
Pop It
okay,
Up
man. He's
Magazine.
okay.
Yeah.
With Freda.
Yeah.
That's what you
Yeah.
want.
You want both. Okay, see you guys.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.